Welcome back, everyone, to Figuring Out the Formula. I'm your host, Kyle. I'm here with Pat and Chan, as always. And what a weekend it was! It was a late one. This past Grand Prix was in Australia, the land down under, and there weren't any roos on the track, but there was some action for sure. But before we jump ahead, let's cheers, boys! Great race. Unless
Cheers.
you're a Red Bull fan.
We rocking O'Douls or Fosters tonight.
Mm, sorry, American made here.
Yeah, just a Yingling American made.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is what it is. But so we move into practice. There was actually for a 2 week break, basically, there wasn't a whole lot of drama that went on. So we've been keeping you guys updated with the Red Bull situations, the sexual harassments with Christian Horner, everything's been going on. It's been going on, right? Well, the female who accused Christian Horner of sexual harassment in the workplace mysteriously was suspended, fired, let go. Um, I don't think that's what you're supposed to do in corporate America or corporate world in general, regardless of where you are. But if someone accuses someone of sexual harassment, you probably shouldn't fire the person who is accusing. But I don't know. I yield to one of you guys. I'm not a corporate man, so I don't necessarily know. Chan, you look like you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm a corporate man, but I know that there's anti-retaliation laws in place, and I guess they don't cross the Atlantic Ocean per se. But yeah, she was suspended, is the last we've heard. She has obviously appealed that decision, and that's the last we've kind of heard of it. And I'm sure that probably 2, 3 weeks from now, there will be a little blurb that says, "Oh, Red Bull has heard her appeal and decision remains final. That complaints dropped, and she'll either be suspended or fired or given severance pay and say be gone." Like it was something of the like. But really, all in all, it's just such an anticlimactic ending, if you ask me. Like,
Well, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think this is over. I mean, even if
yeah,
they do say, okay, we're upheld, like we're keeping the suspension, like it's happening, you're going to get fired. Here's your severance. I'd be interested to see if the severance is more than what her job normally pays in a severance, right? Like, is she going
yeah.
to get a little bit on top? You
Because mind
know,
you, I'm pretty sure
is
that
is she going to get just the tip, or is she going to get everything? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure she already got a little bit of something from Horner.
Uh,
Maybe more.
No, whoa, there was a independent investigation by Red Bull, so I don't know how it's independent, but there was no wrongdoing. Okay, so
Somebody, from what I've seen and heard, some people consider paying a little hush money is not considered wrongdoing in some
whoa,
countries. Allegedly,
alleged hush.
allegedly.
Yeah, please don't
So
send us a cease and desist or
please
whatever.
don't.
But
We're just here having fun. But yeah, no, I'm sure we'll probably hear something. But I think the for as much as it was boiling up to be with like not just Christian Horner and Jos Verstappen, and then Helmut Marko got involved, and then the owners of Red Bulls, and then there was like, oh well, if these people are fighting, then Max is going to leave, and Adrian Newey's going to leave, and now everybody's just kumbaya, and like
yeah,
it kind of
it's
just
weird.
it's very weird how it just things went back to normal real quick.
Well, we'll get into whether it really is normal at Red
Yeah.
Bull this week or not, but there was one team that things were definitely not normal. So during the practice session, FP1, Alex Albon for Williams, he absolutely crashed the hell out of his car. I mean, it was a violent crash. It made me worry like, okay, we've seen some injuries at Albert Park before, the track in Australia that we were racing at, and this one was pretty bad. Well, luckily Alex Albon was perfectly fine. He was able to keep going for the weekend, right? Pat, explain a little bit on the situation that actually gained the most traction, news-wise this week, with
So
Williams.
yeah, Williams is a mess. Um, the biggest thing that came out of this was Williams only had two chassis available. For those of you that don't know, normally teams have three because one is a spare in case you have a big crash before the race. Well, they didn't because they're poor, relatively. And so James Vowles basically said, "Hey, Logan, we don't really think you're going to do shit with your car. So we're going to give your chassis to Alex. And we're going to hope that Alex gets in the points. And there's nothing you're going to do about it." And
This in no way is this the actual conversation.
no, I mean, I'm trying to
We're
simplify
fluffing it up a
this.
little
Yeah.
bit.
But I mean, and so Logan Sargent, despite all his flaws, just got his car taken away like a little ass kid. And props to him. He stuck it out through the weekend with the team to try to, I guess, show support for the team. But if that was me, I'm Audi 5000, dude. I'm not staying where I'm clearly not wanted.
Well,
and
so
go ahead.
no, you got it.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that in addition to that, it also came out that Williams uses Excel to manage all their parts
I'm so glad
instead
you
of an
brought this up.
ERP database like any major company should be using. I'll bet you a lot of them out there really don't use anything more complicated than Excel. But it's like, dude, you're a Formula One team and you're using a spreadsheet to manage your parts when God knows how many parts go into an F1 car, and you do that multiple times a year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
So,
like,
bro, before we move on from this, my question is, like, everybody has a coworker, a friend, cousin, whatever, right? Like someone who just is in a place of authority, but you could hit them with a fucking rock and they wouldn't know what technology you use to get the rock to them. You know what? Like they are just so technologically disabled. It's ridiculous. Like people don't know how to sync their Microsoft accounts or like the Google Drive, whatever. It doesn't matter. Could you imagine a Formula One team not being able to sync up their Excels? Like they're doing Excel, online, and someone just I hit Control A or Alt F4. Oh shit! There goes the season. I don't know.
now, it's like somebody made the comment of just like you have Ferrari on the track going, "We are checking," and Williams off the track is going VLOOKUP.
Yeah.
Like let's refresh. Like
Yeah.
Sort and filter. Like
Yeah. Control
it
F,
is nuts
Command
to
F.
hear that. It's like I will say this. Thank goodness they're not still doing that per se. That's what it came out as. They used to do that. James Vowles, obviously we want Williams to be a little better than where we're at. They want to be better where they're at. But between incidents like this, incidents like whenever they pulled up the car, lifted the car up at I think Monaco last year, and it was like just smooth as
brain.
Yeah, it's like, man, like anytime you see Albon getting the points or Sargent like not finished last, it's just like, you know what? There's got to be some props to that because this was like, what was Claire Williams doing? Like, I mean, it's just like nuts to me.
Yeah. I don't the main focus, fluff aside, James Vowles in an interview after his decision was made public that Albon would be taking Logan's car from him basically. Um, he said like this was the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my career. And this is a storied, successful, like a very long career, and this is the hardest decision. It just goes to show what he wrestled with. He went on to say like this was strictly based off performance this year. So 2024, Logan versus Alex. Alex has the best chance of scoring a point. He's like 1 point is the difference between sixth place in the constructors and last place. So he said he went on to predict like by the end of the year, 1 or 2 points is going to make the difference. So that's why I think he made it such a big deal. Like this, he made this decision, which wasn't taken lightly. But I go ahead, Chan.
I was going to say, yeah, the sentiment I had, especially after hearing James kind of discuss it, at first I'm just like, this is kind of wild. Like, let's read into it. But then when James come out and talk about it, it was kind of everybody basically had the sentiment of just like, we get it. but it still sucks. Like the fact you're doing this, it sucks, but we 100% get it. Like I get it. I mean, and I don't think that Logan could argue necessarily about that too. If you're
No,
looking at it, I
Yeah.
mean,
if he still wants a seat next year, you're a yes man right now.
exactly.
Until you score a point or a couple points, you're a yes man because
Mhm.
yeah,
You got to know
team's
your role
first.
as the number 2 guy.
Yeah, team first. Okay, sorry, I'll step back. Take my car, take my wife, take whatever. It doesn't matter. Just score a fucking point. Well, fun fact: after all these tough decisions, Alex Albon didn't even score a point. I think he finished 12th or 13th.
11th.
So
Yeah, he finished
11th. Okay,
11th.
either way, still not a point.
That's
So
right.
all of that heartache, and Logan Sargent got a free vacation, basically.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it was a backdoor 11th too. It wasn't even like he wouldn't have finished 11th. I don't know, not to spoil anything of the race, but
Yeah,
it was a backdoor 11th place. He was not close to the points.
yeah. I mean, Williams isn't the only team that isn't close. Alfa Romeo or Kick Sauber, whatever the hell they're called nowadays, uh, they're struggling. We mentioned it. The first couple of races, they've had the slowest pit stops ever. That did not stop. Today, they both set slow records for or records for slow pit stops again. Apparently, it's some design flaw with the axle and like how the lock nut gets on it, or it strips it basically. It's tough, and then you go through qualifying. Joe, like poor guy, he hit a curb, but like everybody else, but for some crazy reason, the end plate of his wing and then part of the front wing just evaporates.
Snapped.
Like, dude, it was like there was nothing crazy about the hit. He didn't hit like a
Yeah.
big sausage curb or anything. It was just
It's
a
a curb
regular
that
curb.
everybody's going to hit on that. Like if that's the racing lines over that curb, and his wing just said, "Nope, not today."
Yeah, I'm going home.
Yeah, if that guy didn't have bad luck, he would have no luck at all. I mean, I saw him driving slow and I was like, what the hell, Joe? Like, what are you doing? And then I look at his car and it's just half his front wing is missing. And it's like, how do you do that without I've never seen that happen without crashing.
Yeah, it really, but it didn't even get that much attention, right? Like, I guess because Kick is running so far in the back, like
Yeah.
no one really gives a shit of where they're qualifying because it's between 20 and 15 every time, so it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, like there wasn't much that went on during Q1, so like that was something that they should have focused more on. But the other thing that did happen in Q1 was Daniel Ricciardo. So Aussie, oi
Oi,
oi
oi,
oi.
oi.
Thank you. At his home track, he laid a banger of a lap in Q1. I mean, this he was happier than a pig in sunshine. You know what I mean? And that it started raining. It rained right on his parade. Not literally, but figuratively, it started raining on him. He exceeded track limits. So, as we've said in the past, that's when all four tires cross over the white lines. He ended up getting a penalty. He got his lap time deleted for it. So, he laid a killer of a lap, and then he ended up being out in Q1, just like Joe, because he
It
he
was
struggled with that.
it was a real buzzkill because like we finally, Bahrain, Daniel Ricciardo was the leader of the two. That's where we had the Yuki Daniel situation. But the
Yeah.
last race is like Daniel was not even like contending like with Yuki. And this year we come around, hits that just a home run of a lap, and you're like, oh, all right, here we go. It's turning on. And then next thing you know, the Xfinity Racetrack Napa Red Bull is out for out of Q1 again. That's just like Daniel over here, like we were talking about, wanting to be in the Red Bull seat next year, and he can't even make it out of Q1. Like it just with
Well,
Yuki putting up good numbers.
yeah, I mean Yuki, he finished what?
Seventh.
Yeah, seventh.
Yeah.
So he finished the race in seventh, and that was one of his best drives. And we're heading to Japan next race, so he's got the ability to get two really great finishes for V carbonation or whatever it is. I'm not ever gonna say its actual name,
Yeah,
like
it's
I've said before, but
National Car Rental Coca-Cola Racing Team.
whatever it is, I don't know. My thing is, we're so used to the same three teams running up front. Well, it's also the same three teams running in the back, right? Like I mentioned, kick, uh, V carbonation, V whatever. Um, the last team is Alpine. We've made it a point to say that Alpine absolutely
Stinks.
and Alpine does.
Stink. I don't know what the other word was supposed to be, but they
I just
stink.
want to no, I just wanted to see how long you would keep saying stink, but
Okay, I'll say it every week.
okay, well, I agree, except you can't say it this week. Kinda. For qualifying, anyways, Esteban Ocon, he finally made it out of Q1. Let's give them a golf clap.
I'm going to put an asterisk by it with only 19 cars in qualifying. I'm just going to put that out there. He finished 19th,
And
19th with only.
yeah, and one car didn't.
They're
one car,
putting up
Yeah.
Latifi numbers.
Yeah, and
Hanging
one
in the
car.
rafters.
Yeah, it's like one car didn't
What
have
a
a
backdoor Q2 he got. I mean, if that's what that's what floats Ryan Reynolds' boat.
Well, the French government loves it. That backdoor qualifying effort was, yeah, a car didn't have a front wing. Yeah, a driver didn't have a car. Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo had his lap time deleted. But whatever, that's irrelevant. You would have thought this dude won Monaco. I mean, Esteban Ocon on the radio after Q1 was, guys, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, this feels like a victory. And then I'm pretty sure I heard some sniffling in there. Like I think he definitely popped a mini bottle of champagne when they got back to the garage because they were
Oh,
over the
100%.
moon. It's like it didn't end up it didn't end up mattering because they finished like shit anyways in the race. So I don't know. I think that was just one of the most comical things that we saw this weekend was how much it meant to them to get out of Q1 just to suck in the race.
Oh, how the mediocre have fallen. I mean, they will just to be celebrating getting out of Q1. It brings Miss McLaren fan joy.
For sure. Because I mean, over the past couple of years, Pat, like it was a legitimate battle between Aston Martin, McLaren, and Alpine, and only two have elevated, and Alpine ain't one of them.
Look, I mean, and feel free to cut this out, but we're going to keep talking about how Alpine just sucks. Why? Because fuck them. That's why. Like, fuck them. Fuck the French. Sorry if we have any French viewers, but
whoa,
sorry.
Oh,
But I mean,
easy.
That's I'm never gonna like Alpine.
You're gone. You're canceled. See you later, buddy.
Okay.
French friends, bonjour, je m'appelle Chanlot.
Hell yeah,
you're
never going to France. Hell yeah.
You're like Logan Sargent. You're out. See you, buddy. All right. Well, speaking of you're out, I don't know how I was gonna translate.
Who's out of Q2 now?
Yeah. Oh, who's
what
out
a
of
transition!
So that wasn't the only drama we saw during qualifying, though. We actually got to witness Checo doing Checo things, which he either is like the best racer ever. He's the king of the streets. He's the defense minister of Mexico. He's got all these nicknames, or he's just dog water. Like he forgets that he's in a Red Bull and knows how to race, right? Like it's just, excuse me, it's just terrible. Like he impeded Nico Hulkenberg, and it wasn't even close. Like it's like he was just zoning off, and then oh shit, there's a car coming. Oh, let me get out of the way real quick. Chan, what we talked about it last year. This guy has a golden opportunity. Yeah, he's not going to win the world championship, but dude, you could be the number 2 and get a check if you just do your job. And he finds ways to forget how to do his job.
I really think that it's a case of like the best way to say this is almost like it's just like when it comes to his career, it's like very like narcoleptic, in all honesty. Like it's like he has moments where he is just firing on all cylinders, and then all of a sudden just like just doesn't know like what happens. Like just the light switch goes off in a bad way, and then that comes back on. And what does he do? He goes and just tears up the track and wins in Baku or wins in Jeddah, and then next thing you know, he'll get a pole position and then just completely just piss his pants, and then like just guy. That's the best way. Is like narcoleptic. Like you see videos on YouTube of like narcoleptic dogs that are just running down the hallway and just fall. That's Checo's career, at least at Red Bull.
Checo is the Mexican fainting goat.
There you go. Yep, the fainting
that's what
goat.
he is.
Like the fanfare, like it's when all's well when it's not, the eyes aren't on him, and then whenever the fanfare gets loud, just like that, just locks up and falls over.
Yeah,
like,
I never thought of it, but I'm glad we made that connection because he really does.
Yeah.
But the people weren't sleeping in qualifying were Max on pole, then you had Carlos Sainz in second, and then Lando Norris in third. So Lando Norris, shocker, right? Well, that's because we mentioned Checo impeding Hulkenberg. Well, he got a grid penalty for it. So eat shit, goat, or whatever.
Goat.
So
he's not a good term this way.
Yeah. So moving from qualifying to the race. Great. Another race. Wonder who's gonna fucking win this one. Is it the same guy who's won the last 3,000 fucking races, who's got perfect weekends flying out of his ass?
Like going for trying to win 10 Grand Prix in a row for the second time in his career.
Yeah, well, that didn't happen. Max Verstappen.
Not so fast, my friend.
Out on lap 5. He retires. So, Pat, I know your heart was hurting when this happened, so why don't you do some trauma counseling here and tell us what happened?
Well, first I cried.
Pussy.
And then I went to church. Now, so
then he found his McLaren sweatshirt to wear on the recording of this podcast. To act like that.
Funny how it looks like a brand new sweatshirt, but whatever.
Whoa! This is 2020 or 2021, baby. It's my best sweatshirt.
You're right. You're damn right.
This is my best sweatshirt. This is high quality shit.
I would agree.
But coming out of the first lap, Max goes ahead and pulls a second on everybody. So everyone's just like, well, this is the end, whatever. And by lap 3 or 4, I think, Carlos actually passed him, and people were like, what's that going on over there? And the very next lap, Max's car starts smoking on the rear right tire, of which what ended up happening is that his brakes just seized up and didn't actually do anything. They were basically just stuck, couldn't get any cooling to them. They heated up to the point where I think the assembly actually like made part of the tire just blow out when he was coming into the pits. So his car was pretty much toast. I don't know.
Literally.
Yeah. I don't know if it was, one of those instances where someone's tear off goes flying off and gets stuck in a brake duct or something like that. For it was literally just assembly error or a part failed or something. He didn't look too pissed about it because, like we all know, he's probably going to win most of the races this year. But yeah, it was one of his very few retirements, of which I think that's his second in Australia.
Yeah.
In 3 years. So go ahead.
So 2 main points that I want to make, right? You mentioned the ducks, like fuck. You mentioned the like blowout basically of the tire coming into pit lane. It was like violent. His wheels, his brake assembly was smoking, and then it caught fire, and then it heated up the tire so much it just blew it up. Right. Luckily, it was to a wall, not while he was in pit lane, because that could easily have killed someone or very seriously injured them. So that was lucky. Then he pulls into his box and fire erupts, which they did a great job of putting out the fire as quickly as possible. But thank God no one was seriously hurt, because it was basically while he was driving, it was like a handbrake. Like you have 4 wheels, one wheel, the brake is constantly on. So he said it was like driving with your handbrake always on. So
yeah, and I'll give some props to Max and how he handled it too, because we've seen in the last 2-3 years, like Max will sit there and like go full crybaby, like screaming over the radio when he doesn't win by like more than 30 seconds. Like he knew that something was wrong, but then on top of that is he knew he was coming in the pit, but like was on the radio just calm and collect. It's like fire. There's a fire on the brake. Get the fire
Mhm.
extinguishers. So the pit crew was able to, from that getting a lot worse, and potentially if that flame goes up a little bit higher, we have a repeat of his father's incident back in the '90s.
Well, I don't think it would be that bad, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to speak to is I saw that Max Verstappen went live on Twitch. Not very out of the ordinary. The thing that was crazy was it was during the race, like towards the later part of the race. This motherfucker decided to blow his own car up, I think, allegedly, just so he could go do sim racing and stream it on Twitch. So
Yep.
good for you, Max.
People are calling him a full-time Twitch streamer and part-time F1 driver because you're
Technically,
at the track Thursday, Friday,
yeah,
Saturday.
I was gonna say technically he only works on the weekend, so
That's
good for
right.
him.
So he's just moonlighting as a Formula One champion.
Well, he's doing it for Red Bull, and that team normally is elite. I mean, this season overall, it is very elite. But I say pulling up, these things are shipped, but pulling up to the track and unloading the cars, Red Bull did not have the setup correct. So for not just for Max, obviously Max's car was fucked up; it burned to the ground. But even Checo's car, like they didn't have the downforces, they didn't have everything figured out how they have been performing, right? Like they just didn't have a good weekend as a team. So I don't think it's anything to note particularly right now, but maybe we come back to it if, in Japan they have another shitty weekend. Like, is it complacency? Is that starting? Or I don't know. I think it's just something we need to look at. Moving from Red Bull, though, lap 17, there was another issue. So it wasn't for another Red Bull. Thank God, right? Like Checo, you got to at least score something for the team. No, in fact, it was for their rivals. So Mercedes. Mercedes on lap 17, Lewis's car just did a hard reset. Like the whole engine just bloop, turned off, bloop, just completely off, and his car was fucked. Like the engine just shut down in the middle of a turn, and he's pulled over to the side. Yep, I'm out, guys. And then 10 seconds later, you look over and he's in the Mercedes garage in civilian attire already. It's like, how'd you get there that quick? But
it feels like Lewis. Sorry to interrupt you, Shannon, but it feels like Lewis is just kind of literally given up on Mercedes at this point. Most drivers, even if they know they're already going to another team, they still try to be kind of graceful. But even in like FP2, Lewis was already saying, "Oh, this is like one of the worst cars I've ever driven." And then his car died.
Yeah.
And Mercedes probably could have gotten it back out there if they just like put it in rice, turned it off and back on. But yeah, I don't really foresee this being a nice season for Mercedes just from a PR standpoint. Because Lewis is definitely he just doesn't have a filter anymore for Mercedes. Like he'll tell everybody the car sucks. And while Toto tries to put it nicely, like Lewis is actually like, no, like this is a dog water car.
He's a disgruntled employee right now. And
yeah, it's
I think he just needs a good finish, right? Like when your car doesn't work like it's supposed to. I'm not saying performance, I'm just saying reliability, right? Like you can't run the entire Grand Prix, you're going to be pretty pissed. Now, Max Verstappen is the exception to that because he's led and won every single race. So of course he's not that mad. But Lewis, I understand why he's frustrated, Chan.
Yeah, it's something that, it's kind of wild how, we saw obviously Red Bull's taken over since the new rule changes and stuff like Lewis was to the spoils go the riches when, the turbo hybrid era, from 14 until 22, just had his way with it. And now to see him on the flip side of that, not only is he frustrated, but also he's getting up there in age and knows that he's got a seat at Ferrari, which has been improving over this year's. This year's current car is waxing the floor with Mercedes's product, and he knows he's going to that. And it's not much of a regulation change coming next year. So why would you keep talking up Mercedes? Why would you, it's not necessarily burning the bridges on the way out, but it's like just speaking it like it is of like, hey, this is not good. Like,
he's just being transparent, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's something Lewis has always been, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He's always like, he will speak his mind, whether it's on the track issues, off the track issues. And I think that it's just speaking his mind. And the reason that I really, you kind of believe him and don't really argue it is because people like Toto and the Mercedes camp are not really bashing back saying, oh, well, Lewis just isn't putting enough effort in this year. Like they're quiet. And when you're quiet like that, it's probably because you don't want other people to hear your side of the take on it. So,
or the person is correct.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Right. It's like,
yeah.
So, I mean, it is interesting to see, frustrating because, I'm not going to call Lewis a lame duck season here because he's got a seat next year, but I mean, he's got nothing to drive for in a mediocre car.
Yeah, he's not winning a world championship with this, right? Like, Mercedes has been struggling though, like you mentioned that, and it wasn't just for Lewis this race, right? Like Lewis in lap 17, his car just shuts down. Well, the very last lap of the freaking Grand Prix, we might have seen some better battles like Lando and who was behind Lando? Fuck.
Oscar was right behind.
It was really it was Lando, Charles, and Oscar.
Oh yeah,
duking it out for 2 through 4.
Yeah. So we saw some good battles that could have happened, but George Russell crashes on the last lap, and it really just ruined the last lap of the race. Like they were down to like within a second and a half of each other. Who knows? Anything can happen. One mistake and someone's there, right? Like, and George Russell, when I saw it, now this is obviously biased opinion because I friggin' hate George Russell and Mercedes, but it looks like he hits his brake in the middle of a turn, which is rare. Normally you brake going into the turn, and he kind of has to catch his car, and then he goes into the gravel, hits the wall, comes back out, and he's standing, or his car is resting in the middle of the track, a live track, right? Sideways, yeah. Like the wheels underneath it because of the tethers, and it's just a crazy scene. And it's the last lap, so everyone's pushing all out to get as much as they can. Well, the first part is, I thought it was his fault. I thought he made an error. I was fucking livid. Like, this fucking guy, like he really does suck. Like, this guy stinks. Well, Chan, it actually wasn't the case. So we saw, like, online afterwards, I saw Fernando Alonso's video, in-car camera, as well as his radio. And basically what had happened was Fernando had engine issues, like to the point where if there were 3, 4, 5 more laps, I don't think he would have made it. I think he would have had to retire because his car, in the turn that George crashed, Alonso's in front of him and his car bogs down, like in the middle of the corner. It's not like he brake checked him or anything. His car literally bogged down.
Yeah, it's just almost like it dropped gears and couldn't get out of a gear. But like it's something that was like brake check was probably the closest thing you could say to what it looked like.
Yeah,
but obviously Fernando's not going to brake check somebody when they're racing for points. So
not when he's leading.
Yeah,
why would he slow down if he's leading, right?
Exactly. So that was kind of because same boat as you. When I watched that live this morning, it was like I just started laughing. I was like, "What an idiot!" Like talking about George Russell, and I was like, "What an idiot this guy is." But then you look at it, and then I think I didn't really think much of it, like different of that, until we saw the post race FIA came down and handed out a 20-second. It was a drive-through penalty that was then converted to a 20-second penalty. And so I was, all right, so let me look at this again because obviously the stewards and the FIA saw something that Fernando did, and whether it was purposeful or not. And then it wasn't until after I watched it and I was like, it looks like he's like almost like impeding in qualifying on him. And then that's when I watched the onboard, and you can hear the car some kind of awful, and he's on the radio trying to figure out what's going on. So it wasn't
Yeah.
his fault. I mean, that's kind of it's unfortunate. I hate to call it like rub with the grain type thing, but he can't control the fact that his engine just about gave out, and
Yeah. I think the scariest moment of that crash though wasn't the actual impact. It was the fact that he came back out onto the track, basically like leaning like
Yeah.
on his side, not completely over, but on his side on a live track. And these cars, like I said, are going all out.
I mean, yeah, he was stuck there kind of like I think it was probably 4 years ago now. Like we saw Lance Stroll in Bahrain, hung upside down like a cow. And his George Russell's car was mangled. Like that was a violent crash.
Yeah.
Of which, good thing George isn't hurt, but I mean, you're sideways and you know that Lance Stroll is coming. And you're stuck in the middle of a racetrack. I mean, George was on the radio yelling for a red flag, which, I mean, you can debate if it's a red flag, a virtual safety car, whatever. But I mean, I probably would have shat my pants in that situation. George is probably getting new
if you're
race
sitting
suit.
in the middle of a turn where people are going 150 miles an hour and it's basically a blind turn and they can't see you, I would be screaming. Like he was red flag, red flag, it red flag. I'm in the middle of the track, red flag. I would be I wouldn't need a microphone. All these fuckers would be able to hear me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be screaming it, but I don't know. Mercedes's peril is McLaren's bliss, right? So for the first time in 2024, Max Verstappen did not win a race. He didn't even finish a race. But Carlos Sainz comes home with a win. And then you had a Ferrari 1-2. So that means Charles Leclerc came in second place. And then Lando, four baby, he got third place. And not a bad weekend. So it was different. I think F1 really did need a change
and
because
don't discount Oscar Piastri coming on his homecoming too, bringing home
fair,
fourth. So.
uh, fair. I was just gonna stick with the podium, but
Yeah, that's fine. I normally would too, but home race boy, I
all
give
right,
it to.
fair. So I really F1 did need a change because seeing the same guy win every race that's great. If you're a fan of the technology and the science, the engineering behind it, that's great because like this car's great. But it's so fucking boring when you don't even have to worry about who's winning the race. Like you're cheering for second place. That's pretty boring. And I'm the first to admit that, right?
Mhm.
Like 2 hours of watching the same, like they don't even show Max Verstappen anymore, and unless his brakes are blowing up. So I think we really needed that. But something that I do want to dip into, and I guess this is Chan, since you're the game well not gambling sorry the fantasy expert.
Yes,
You,
sir.
you you have some updates for us,
I do. So we
both
posted.
both positive and negative.
Yep. So first off, again, that guy Chase never responded.
Boo.
We're not acknowledging you anymore after this week. You are first place if you look at Grid Rival, but will be not acknowledged as first place unless you come forward in the future. But we will not reach out for trying to find you. So
Yeah,
Chris or
Chase is a bot.
Chase is a bot. Chase is AI. Can't spell Chase. His name spells his name Chase, Chaise.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, but to kind of not acknowledge him, we have a new second place now, first place by our recognition in our record books. A little kinfolk of the pod, Sir Kevin Not Magnuson, Kevin Jones. Great week. I think he racked up 958 points to pole vault into second place.
he's using
Wasn't
PEDs or something.
do
I'm
what?
telling Said he's using PEDs or something.
Wasn't the most points for all the 11 people in there. I think there's another AI person. There's a Tyler Norris. We haven't mentioned you because you're a midfield car. You are just like you're like a red V carb car. But you had whoever, if you are real and exist, let us know, add us on the Instagram. But That was 1,000 points. So that was our top winner earner for the week. But Kevin, not Magnuson Jones, is in leading our recognizable pool
our human participants.
yes, our modified standings. Um, Unfortunately, some people probably could use some AI and get some help out here. So, we mentioned this young man last week falling short of expectations once again. Um, Sir Drew Ferguson, for the third straight week, you have racked up a meager 650 points. So 3 races in, and you've racked up 650, 650, 650, and are bringing up the rear with 1950. Also tied for last for the week, but not tied, but for the season, just slightly ahead. Mr. Chris Buckright, if you're listening to this, a tough week in Australia for you. I don't know. I know that Drew obviously did not look at Grid Rival come Friday or listen to any of the text messages that I had sent him because he
How do
did
you
not
listen to a
place.
text message?
Well, look, or heat
Hey,
advice from a text
voice
message.
messages are a thing.
All
Voice message
right.
or thing. That's not what I
Okay.
sent. But
Okay.
my good friend Drew here decided to leave Logan Sargent in his lineup. Even though Grid Rival did send notifications and I didn't even have to send him a text. But
Dumbass.
yeah. So
Dumbass.
let's pick up the pace here. You got a week off to regroup. We're in Japan, Suzuka, one of the better courses on the circuit track list for the year. Let's shoot for not having the minimum 650 again. If you need to send us the login so that we can, help you out, like
No.
help us help you.
No.
Like
No. I said it last week. I'm saying it again. No free advice. All right.
no
You have to
free
buy one of
advice.
us a drink if you want advice on this. And
That's fair.
honestly, you probably want the other Jones brother since he's the one who's fucking leading nowadays.
There you
But
go.
um,
Kevin, not Magnuson Jones.
yeah, send him a DM or whatever. But so that was our fantasy update for the week for the Australian Grand Prix. Let's go ahead and move to the real life fantasy, I guess. So we have been doing our predictions where we do first place, second, and third place. So we guess the podium. You get 3 points for guessing first place correctly, 2 points for second, 1 point for third. Right now, after the Australian Grand Prix, Chandler and Pat both scored 2 points because they correctly guessed Charles Leclerc to finish second. So the totals as they are right now, current, are Chandler at 10 points, and then Pat and we both have 8. So, like I said, we know
race.
just giving Chan a little bit of a cushion just so we can come back. It's always better when
It's a long
when
season.
you yeah, it's always better when they have hope and you can just rip it
I love
away. Yeah.
that.
We're
I
only
love
12% of the way through the season now, so only an
Well,
eighth of the way.
So those are the points for our current standings right now for our fantasy, for our real life fantasy. We got to come up our picks. I don't know. We have to come up with a name or something. We'll keep you guys updated with that. But the upcoming race is the Japanese Grand Prix. So that is not this weekend. It is next weekend, and that's going to be qualifying is Saturday at 2 a.m. Youth, or Sunday at 1 a.m. Also, ugh. But since Chandler is now leading, you are the sole leader. You get to pick your podium first. Who you going with?
I am going to say Max is going to come back with a vengeance off the break blowout, and he will win. I'm sticking on that. But I do think that Mr. Our Chucky Boy at Ferrari is getting a little PO'd of finishing behind Carlos so far. I think he's going to kind of turn that tide around, and he'll finish second. And I'm actually going to go Carlos in third. I'm going to say a Ferrari 2-3.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Pat, you scored 2 points in Australia, so you get the honors of going second.
So Max is going to win by a full pit stop. I think Checo's going to bounce back and come second. And then I am going to say that Oscar Piastri is going to go back to back in Japan and pick up third place.
Nice. I would love to see that podium, but my podium is pretty similar, actually. I'm going to go Max first place, and then I am going to go Carlos Sainz in second place, and then actually Oscar Piastri in third. So anytime
Nice.
I pick Oscar, that doesn't really go well for Oscar. So if that's the case, I won't pick you again this season. Scouts honor or whatever they do. I don't know. Whatever it is, Scouts honor, I won't pick you if you crash or whatever, because it's definitely my fault, not yours. I say again, that is the Japanese Grand Prix. So qualifying Saturday at 2, Sunday at 1, not this weekend, but next weekend. Thanks everyone for listening to Figuring Out the Formula. I'm Kyle with Chandler and Patrick. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks.